Hello and welcome to the National Road Safety Partnership Program webinar, Heavy Fleet Options, Shifting to a Proactive State of Safety with the Sutherland Shire Council. My name is Jerome Carslake and I'm Director of the NRSP and its many activities. To find out more, please visit the NRSP website and register for our newsletter or follow us on social media such as our LinkedIn page. Today's session will go for approximately 60 minutes with plenty of time for discussion throughout. We have two pause points where we'll be taking questions and hoping to get a lot at the end of it. So we are going to be recording the session and it will be shared on the NRSP website, and an email will go out to everyone with a link to that and the slide deck following it. So as I mentioned, we'd love to have your input as we go along and to make the webinar as interactive as possible. So please do send through your questions by typing into the question box. You can upvote them as well. And as mentioned, we have 2 points as we go along. There is also a chat box. Feel free to comment, but please do place your questions in the question box. So if something does go wrong, we actually have a record of these and we can go through and draw on them. So, so now to our two amazing presenters joining us today from up in New South Wales. We have Mark Mills. G'day, Mark.
Hi, Jerome. How you going?
Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself, mate?
Yeah, firstly, thanks for providing the opportunity for us to tell Sutherland Shire Council's story in regards to fleet. Bit of background about me. I have 30 years experience in local government with 25 years in a fleet management capacity. I've got 8 years with Sutherland Shire Council, leading significant innovative reforms in areas of asset strategy, operations and maintenance, transition to grey fleet, COR safety management systems. I also have a keen interest in fleet industry innovation, people safety, information sharing, and I'm a serving member on the IPWA National Fleet Council as well.
Awesome. So enormous skills for us to draw on and hear from today in that. And joining Mark, we have David Newell-Courtney. So welcome, David.
Yeah, hi, Jerome. Thanks for having us.
Tell us about yourself, mate.
I've worked for Sutherland Shire Council for 26 years. I started out as an apprentice plant mechanic, and I was lucky enough to be hired as a full-time mechanic. And from there, it's been a constant progression in various roles in fleet. In my current role since 2013, and I've worked very closely with Mark during this time, focusing on our fleet safety.
Awesome. So thank you both for taking the time to share with us today. And I'm really keen to dive in and hear more as well our audience. So let's get into it.
All right. Thanks, Jerome. Today's discussion is just an opportunity, again, to share Sutherland Shire Council's approach and learnings in regards to our continued journey on improving safety from a fleet management perspective, which I'm hoping will be of interest to people on here today and offer some takeaways and assistance also in their journeys as well. So just a little bit about Sutherland Shire. So we're the southernmost coastal local government area, LGA in the Sydney region. We incorporate part of the Royal National Park, the area of 370 square kilometres, 25 kilometres south of Sydney CBD and 20 minutes from Sydney. Our population in 2020 was around 232,000, and we're the second largest residential population of any LGA in New South Wales. Just a little bit about our community. So in regards to our fleet composition, like most councils, we have a diverse range of types of heavy fleet, plant and equipment. We have around 356 major plant assets. We have 133 light vehicles, 177 heavy vehicles and plant combinations. And council also manages its own curbside collection for domestic waste. And we have 46 heavy regulated vehicles in that space. Across the range of plant and equipment that we have and vehicles, 48% are deemed high to extreme risk assets. So again, I suppose due to the scale of council's waste services and fleet operations and the daily movement interaction with vulnerable road users, this also significantly increases the risk likelihood of safety-related incidents. So just to give you a bit of an idea of our waste operations, which is probably our most significant risk. We collect 6.7 million bins per annum. Our vehicles travel about 920,000 kilometres in total to deliver that service, and we collect about 107,000 tonnes of waste material. So today's discussion, we're trying to cover a lot of areas. So in a short period of time, we're going to cover Sutherland's approach to these key focus areas and provide some examples of what we've done and what's proved successful in these areas for us. So, you know, for us, it's about safe fleet, safe operations, safe community, and a safe environment. Some of the change catalysts for us. Council's got a really genuine concern and interest for minimising potential fleet safety impacts to our community and vulnerable road users, and we wanted to move into a more proactive way in ensuring that that operations are done safely and minimise any impact to our community and those other vulnerable road users. So just a bit of background, you know, previous and recent experiences. So probably similar to a lot of other large organisations and councils. Initially, we had lower quality assets, fleet assets. So, you know, they were bought primarily based on costs, initial costs, rather than whole life costs. We've definitely had some serious incidents. Of recent, we've had increased incidents in waste vehicle-related fires. We've had plant rollovers, as you see depicted in that picture. We've had runaway vehicles with contractors. We've had a number of issues with vulnerable road users as well in regards to you know, a lot of our waste services working in densely populated areas. Minor collisions. And we've also, unfortunately, experienced some past fatalities. Some of the things that impacted the need for us to continuously look and improve on what we do and look at changes that are required. So, so recent changes to the, I think it was about 2016, there was changes to the Wphs Self-Insurers model from a regulator compliance model to a self-regulated compliance. So, you know, our approach to safety had to change, and that's some area that we had to pay some attention to as well. The change in safe work high-risk licenses as well. So in 2011, there was changes in regards to load shifting equipment. That's just one example where high-risk licenses were no longer required, but you know, we had to make sure that we're implementing practices that ensured that our operators could competently operate them safely. Compliance requirements, so that's also, that continues to lift as we go through time. Changing population with demographics and density. So our community, the population, our buildings, there's a lot more density that we're dealing with today compared to what we were dealing with in the past 5 years, let's say. Also changes in legislation, that's also impacted, and probably a big one is organisational change in our culture. So, you know, when we go through restructures, things like that, from time to time, those situations can create gaps. So we need to be have awareness of that and make sure that we close off any of those gaps that emerge through those processes. Some of the key principles that we look to apply And again, this is our journey that we're continuing on, and in regards to our workers, our focus in that space, we're looking at making sure that we provide opportunities to lift capability in regards to skill, knowledge of drivers, supervisors, and operators. So making sure that we give them opportunity to do that. So opportunities for consultation to be involved in renewals of plant maintenance, providing great awareness of things they need to do for maintenance, safe operation of the plant, being engaged in pretty much everything we do around plant and equipment that they're normally driving or operating from on a day-to-day basis. And that by doing that, we're hoping to demonstrate the organisational commitment to our workers around safety and motivate and encourage those safe behaviours with those workers. The other key tangible principles are continuous review of what we do. Strategic leverage, so looking at strategic plans of actions to see where there's opportunities where we can take advantage in regards to our fleet operations, to add in things there that makes our operations more safer. Executive engagement and buy-in, so that's critical for us to achieve improvement across the organisation, to get executive engagement and their buy-in is absolutely critical. We've been fortunate enough to be able to do that over the past 5 to 8 years, and they're very supportive of new initiatives and trials that we wish to implement. So we work closely with our executive team to enable those things to occur. Stakeholder engagement, again, that's another key. So industry, suppliers, other partners. Quality assets, so making sure that we spend more in our capital up front, and we put a lot of effort into ensuring those fit for purpose assets at a premium quality. We focus heavily on our maintenance practices as well, make sure that we're got good things in place there, and we'll talk a little bit later about that. Competent and skilled operators and drivers, we want to make sure that we've got processes and practices in place that do ensure that. A positive culture for reporting, so that's something that's been pushed by the organisation for a number of years now, and that is very important to flag emerging issues as well in regards to near misses, etc. So that's something critical as well. In the fleet space, we do a lot of focus on our trend monitoring and assurance requirements, and Dave will touch a little bit more on that as we move through. Lessons learned, so when we do have incidents, investigations, we do focus on making sure that we get good outcomes and to prevent further incidents or recurrences of similar incidents. And community education. Community education is something from a fleet perspective that we're really starting to ramp up and focus in that area currently. Okay, so just a little bit on our strategic and fleet asset management. So it's really important to have that strong structured framework in place, so we understand what we're doing. It's the roadmap for how we manage our fleet. So that's asset management plans, fleet guidelines, and guidelines in regards to safe operating procedures for compliance with chain of responsibility, grey fleet, etc. The importance, again, quality, modern, safe, well-maintained assets, risk-based, fit-for-purpose assets. They're key. I might get David just to explain a little bit of what we do in that space in detail. Dave?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, well, the next 4 points are really where we get proactive in our safety focus through our procurement process. One of the key things is consultation through the whole process. First thing is making sure that we have the correct specifications before going out to the market. And this all needs to involve the key stakeholders, operators, supervisors, and depending on the risks will involve the managers of the operational areas and even someone from our WHS team. Through that, we sort of look at what their current requirements are and making sure that it is fit for purpose, looking at payloads, GVMs, loads, etc., and how they do load the vehicles. And then are there any design features that can make the task more efficient and safer? And that's where we sort of look at those things that we fit to the vehicles, like our camera systems, our MDVRs, our GPS, our load management capabilities, load restraints, cupboards, just make things a little bit easier for the guys in the operation areas. And then even in that process, you look at investigating if there is any new technology out there or new models. We're partnering with the suppliers and manufacturers and trialling those new equipment. It could be improved cabin ergonomics, even advanced safety equipment. And then through that, having the stakeholders involved in the decision-making of the procurement, we sort of provide what we recommend from a fleet and maintenance perspective that best suits the requirements and making sure we are getting those quality equipment. And then in that sort of that finalising the quotations, you review all those safety features and getting acceptance of those safety measures and knowing that they would be fitted to the vehicles. And then through this, the operators feel that they have been engaged and take some ownership of the vehicle and how it's used. Sort of changes their mental thought of just being given a vehicle to use and make it more of their own vehicle. And of course, I have a working relationship with the operators and the supervisors. I can either follow up after with the operators with the next procurement to see if there is any improvements to make. And that sort of ties all into that, getting those safety features across and used correctly.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Just to add on to what Dave said, it's really critical. We really focus a lot of effort into the procurement process. So ensuring that we engage with our workers, making sure that they're part of the selection team, and understanding the operational aspects specific to their needs, developing those fit-for-purpose specifications, trialling, testing, working with our supply partners to make sure that we're getting the best quality equipment that we can. And there is a lot of effort and a lot of time that we put into that, because we know that that area pays off throughout the whole life cycle of that asset, but also to ensures that we're getting assets that are safe. We're making sure that they have the functional design requirements that support and automate those safe behaviours of our workers, drivers and operators that use our plant and equipment. Okay, we're just going to touch on maintenance now. So I've got this slide first. This is, for me as a fleet manager, and I suppose from an executive level, this is a key fleet health indicator. And this is probably, for me, a roadmap of the success that we've been able to achieve in regards to maintaining and having high quality assets in council's fleet. So when I come on board first with council, if we refer to the blue line, which is our planned maintenance, so we're only achieving just a bit above 40% in our planned, and we're heavily reactive in regards to our maintenance practices. So we've done a lot of work understanding what we need to do to make sure that we're working proactive in our maintenance space. So that covers a lot of areas, which we'll detail sort of how we've gone about that a little bit further on. The yellow line is our annual RMS safety inspections. So back in 2013, the amount of the pass rates that we had was just over 55%, which meant that there was a lot of remedial type works that needed to be undertaken to bring assets back up to speed. So this graph tells me that where we were before, our maintenance practices probably, they were good, but they probably still needed a fair bit of improvement. The quality of our assets were probably questionable. And then when we look up towards 2020, we're sort of at a point where our maintenance practices are lifted so much that we're heavily into the proactive space, where majority of our work is planned maintenance, and we've got very little reactive maintenance. The yellow line reflects in 2020, September, when we did our RMS inspections, we only had 10 vehicles fail through minor defects, and none of them were critical safety component issues. They're all just minor in nature. So it's probably a really good place that we're at now, but it's been a lot of work to get there. But this demonstrates and tells the picture that we've got good quality assets and we've got good maintenance practices in place and reporting, defect reporting. So I might get Dave to dive into the detail in regards to maintenance.
Yeah, Mark. All right. We had, through a maintenance through with the workshop, we had to look at our capability of what we could actually do. Also our limitations with such a diverse range of plant. We needed skilled and competent staff to complete all those works. And then looking at our industry best practice guides using the IPA plant and vehicle management manual. Also partnering with suppliers to get it right. Reviewing our maintenance practices, just following manufacturer specifications for servicing and repairing. Then it was sort of, and then we also used the manufacturers for our critical high maintenance assets. We engaged with the manufacturers to carry out 6-monthly and 12-monthly inspections, just that added compliance and take that added risk off. We also make sure the manufacturers are carry out any safety critical repairs and following up with warranty repairs as well. Then it was, we sort of awareness of our maintenance trends monitoring for that sort of followed on with our, we can dive into which make and model specific weaknesses, which we can flag additional service requirements for. And then we sort of have a look at our flagging our critical safety defects. From there, we can investigate a little bit more. Instead of just fixing it, sending the vehicle back on the road, we've got several items that may be the same make and model. So we investigate, make sure all those makes and models are the safe, and if we have to put them on the service regime. From there, we align our skills and competencies with certifications and manufacturers' practices, upskilling our mechanics with manufacturer-specific maintenance training. Our staff have also been trained and review the NHVR Heavy Vehicle Inspection Manual, and this is we do this before our upcoming rego inspections. We make sure we have a safe work environment. We make sure we're always updating and looking at new tools, making things easier, lifting devices, things like that. We also look at the our increased defect reporting. We sort of reviewed our servicing and what repairs we're finding on the servicing. And just then it was sort of a bit more of an education and training with our operators on their pre and post-op checks, which sort of, we've got an increase in defects, which is good. So now we're sending to make sure that the vehicles are going out safe on the roads. We've also got accreditations with our National Heavy Vehicle Maintenance Scheme, which is a pretty big effort for us to go through. And it knows that we are servicing it to a high distinction for that one. We're also partnered with Transport New South Wales. We're a clean fleet accredited, and most of us have also been in the fleet and maintenance with the IPWEA.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Just to summarise that a bit, understanding our capabilities with our workforce in regards to maintenance. So that's a critical one, given the diverse range of plant equipment that we've got to maintain. So to expect our mechanics to be across everything is not really realistic. So that's where we work with our supply partners to support and help us with those real technical issues that we come across. And they engage and work side by side in our workplace with our day labour staff. So that's worked really well, and it's provided more efficient practices as well. Obviously, there's opportunities to save money as well, which we have. Sorry. The other thing is making sure that we're compliant with manufacturers' servicing requirements. Understanding the local impacts to maintenance as well. So how we operate plant and those little things that need to be covered off on. We also, our practice is maintaining the assets at a very high standard. So we want to identify the smallest faults and rectify those faults. So that's where Dave's done a lot of work with our operators and drivers in regards to defect reporting. Where previous, those small things, they just let them slide, they'd accumulate, and that'll lead to deterioration of that asset in quality. We don't have that now. So all of our assets, when they drive out of here, they're still pretty much in a similar state to which we've acquired them, and with everything working on them. And I suppose, the indicator there is that when we send things to auctions, we get good returns on our assets, and they're known as high quality, premium, second-hand assets that go through that place. Also, what's been really beneficial for us is the added insurance we've added to our maintenance practices, where we've got critical high-risk assets that we have our manufacturers come in. For road brooms, for example, we have them come in every 3 months. They do an inspection, they identify all the small faults, and we develop a remedial program, and we fix all those small things. And we do that every 3 months for road brooms, because there's so many moving components on them. Garbage trucks, we do that annually, and probably because we're more familiar with garbage trucks, but still that adds that extra added layer of assurance, maintaining availability and safety of those assets. So that's been key. Also to our, Dave mentioned the trend analysis. So we review on a monthly basis maintenance trends. So that helps us identify those weaknesses in make model specific areas. So we know that you might have a suspension rod bush issue with a certain model that is normally at its end of life after 6 months or 12 months. We know that, and we've incorporated into our preventative maintenance system, which has been really valuable.
Thanks for that, Mark and David. Fantastic. And just a couple of things I heard then, which really came through, is you really can't save yourself to safety. I think you've made the investment. And would you agree that, from what I can hear, the key part of the journey is treating it as that investment, which has helped make the lives easier and safer as you've gone forward?
Yeah, well, that definitely, the investment's part of it, but just having that focus of maintaining the asset quality throughout its life cycle, utilising that principle and then using those actions that we've implemented has really made a big difference, both for safety, financial, and I suppose also our operators and drivers. They've got quality assets and they appreciate that. Was it hard?
Has it gotten easier for you over time as well to engage the leadership? Because I guess with this comes sort of cost. As I've seen the benefits, then I guess improvements in culture. Has that become easier for you to make the case go upwards?
Definitely. When you got that continuous engagement at the executive level, they're used to you coming back to them, and then they start to get more confidence when they see the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. Even when you're trying to get something difficult over the line, it might take you a few times to go back to the executive with what you're proposing, and sometimes that might get adjusted a bit, but at the end of the day, we've been able to achieve some really good things through that process, and we're lucky that we've got a really good support from our executive. And we'll talk a little bit about COR a bit later on, which is a good example where our executive really committed to that.
Just a question here from Danny. Did Sutherland pursue fleet standardization as part of the asset management approach in light and heavy vehicle fleets?
Definitely in our light fleet, we had a really broad range of light vehicles through our fleet. So the make and model representational variance was, the number was like 30. I think it was about 11 manufacturers represented and about 35 variants to that. With our heavy fleet and plant, our aim there is to buy the best quality for our application and operation. Sometimes that does lead to that standardization where you've got a lot of common types of makes and models. But what we have definitely standardized is with, say, our trucks, the design features, tow bar heights, truck mounted cranes, and load restraints, load covering, automatic tarps, things like that. That stuff's been standardized, and that's across. If you jump in any of our vehicles, they've all got electric brakes for towing electric trailers. So it's all standardized, so we don't get those mishaps where people jump in and try to tow a trailer without electric brakes. And just as an example.
Awesome, thanks for that. I'll see if we can fly through these other questions a little bit quickly, and then we'll move on. So one from Raymond. With the comparison of RMS inspections and services, was this by number of services completed and based on recommended service by the OEMs?
So our maintenance and service regimes are based on the manufacturer's schedules and requirements. That graph is our measurement of the blue line's about the planned versus reactive. So services and preventive maintenance is both accounted for in our proactive, and our reactive is those failures that we have that makes the vehicle or asset unavailable for service.
Right, and I'll take this as the last question before we move on from Steve. Is your electronic pre-start capable of isolating plants if there is a critical safety issue identified? And also, does a defect register during pre-start automatically flow through as a job order to the workshop?
Okay, so what was the first part of that again? Sorry, Jerome.
Is your electronic pre-start capable of isolating plant if there is a critical safety issue?
No, so we don't have that isolation feature. And the electronic system we use, it's nationally recognised, so a lot of organisations use it, and they use it in different ways. It has workflow that alerts supervisors to faults. It does not, and we do not have it flowing as an automated thing into our fleet management system. And I suppose our logic to that is that we have a defect or failure reporting system in place. And we do not want to take ownership or accountability or diminish that accountability of the driver and operator by automating it straight flow to fleet, that it's recorded and that we have to act on it. What we're trying to do is make sure that they're accountable. They're the ones that are bringing it to the workshop and using our normal reporting process for that. But in saying that, we can see it in the background.
Awesome. Thanks, so Mark. We'll keep moving on now, and we'll hold these other questions through to the next part.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just touch on vehicle technology. So council's invested heavily into the vehicle technology space. So we've got telematics deployed across 240 assets. We have mass management systems, load cell scale systems fitted to all vehicles above 15,000 GVM. And we have mobile digital video recording systems fitted to all of our waste assets and some of our other key critical assets as well outside of waste, but to a very smaller number. So we get live feeds of our vehicle mass as they're driving around through our telematics, so it's integrated. We've also have live feeds from, and we're just moving across to this, but we've got live feeds to a number of vehicles with the MDVR systems into our telematics as well. So we can actually see and observe live time from any of the camera views and angles that we've got fitted to these vehicles. In regards to technology, the key catalyst for we've done a lot of development with our telematics, and we did that in around 2018. And it was around the body of work that we did with chain of responsibility compliance. And I suppose our practices and how we implemented that in the workplace. So that's probably something that's been very challenging with us in regards to, we have this technology, but how do we actually use it? How do we read it? And just for example, just a bit of an example. So for chain of responsibility compliance monitoring, there's a couple of ways that we do this. And our key focus is on the proactive way. So it's about regular ongoing review of speed and mass breach trends. And we'll give you some examples of what that looks like for us. And it's about raising awareness with drivers that supports that positive reinforcement for behaviour change. So it's about having those regular conversations with drivers when we observe that there's a trend that's starting to develop and a pattern with them either breaching or getting close to breach levels for those things. The other is the old way we used to do things. It was reactive, purely reactive. So, we'd had significant breaches. Our community are the best policemen that we've got. So community complaints or enforcement, from police, detailed analysis. It's very time consuming. When we get this reactives, we have to be really specific about the detail of what our GPS is telling us. And we need to really integrate that data because there is anomalies that occur through GPS data, and we need to make sure that we get it right in that reactive space. And often that the reason being we need to be that detailed is because it often ends up in disciplinary matters. So that's probably where we've been. We're really doing a lot of work in that proactive space, and Dave will talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. So just here's an example of our speed exception reporting from our GPS. And when we're working in the proactive space, what we're encouraging our operational areas is that we don't expect you to look at all the exception speed breaches in here. Our approach is that we pick out we might look at this weekly, we might look at this monthly. It's just dependent on the level of breaches that we're getting. So here, for example, the red line is something I just put in, is that we understand that the vehicles to the left-hand side, you know, we have issues going on there, but the really important ones are the 4 standouts that are to the right. And we expect our supervisors to go and have that proactive conversation about, you know, we've been reviewing the exception reporting for speed. We can see that there's a trend emerging in your behaviour, your driving behaviour, and you need to curb that. You need to bring that in hand, and we'll be back to talk to you in another couple of weeks and review this. So that's the sort of approach. But our supervisors that read this data, this has been fairly challenging because they keep swinging back to the data, to the detail, wanting to dive right into that. Dave, I might get you to explain what you've done from a fleet perspective to support the approach of trend monitoring with our supervisors.
Yeah, Mark. So, yeah, it has been a bit challenging with the guys trying to deep dive into it. But as you can see on that red line, those 4 vehicles that you really need to just have a word to the drivers, and that goes for all operational areas. So each area has access to these exemptions. So I've worked with the supervisors, shown these slides in toolbox talks as well, just to make them aware that we are reviewing it, and is a part of our requirement to review these speeding exemptions. And then each month I sort of also do a speed limiting check. I use this GPS as a tool to do that as well. So I set the parameters at 80 kilometres an hour, and I see all those exemptions over 80, and then any vehicles that do go over the 100 set speed limit. And I provide that report as well. And most of the times, those ones that are speeding at the 80 Ks and above are normally the ones that are on the right-hand side of that bar graph. So then it is just that added extra support to the operational areas that I provide those reports, and just try to get some buy-in, and just hopefully you can see those graphs and exemptions start to move down further.
Okay, so probably just a good point that Dave touched on. Chain of responsibility compliance requirement is to make sure that vehicle speed limiters are functioning correctly. Anyone who goes through that process, through the manual checks of ratios and wheel sizes, tyre sizes, it's a pretty complex process to go through. And we were doing that only once every 12 months. Using our GPS, Dave manages that compliance requirement, and he actually does that on a monthly basis through identifying anything that's exceeded that 100 kilometre limit, and he's got a process in place to deal with that, and he sends them back to the manufacturer to get checked. Okay, so we have a similar for, just quickly, through mass exception reporting. We have the same capability, and we encourage the same monitoring, compliance, and those discussions with drivers. So this is just going to just give you an example of how we use vehicle technology for for the benefit of our incident investigations. So I'll just Dave's going to speak on this, and I'll just run the video while we do it. Dave?
Yeah. So this what you see here is smoke out the back turned into a pretty large fire. Fire brigade got called to. Ended up having to push the actual load on the garbage truck, actually caught fire. And then talking to the fire brigade, they said it was actually started in the compactor. It was a load fire. And then after doing our investigation, our reviewing, talking to the driver, we actually found that probably about 5 kilometres down the road from this, the actual driver heard a banging noise. I got out and looked around the vehicle, and what it actually was the inner rear tyre actually treaded come away. And so what you're actually seeing in the smoke now is the tyre rubbing on the body. And then the rubber ignited, and then the heat from that actually set the load alight. So having these cameras actually highlighted one of the issues we had with tyres, and then from this we've actually gone away from retreads. So that's what the investigation had sort of helped with. One of the safety critical faults we had.
Okay, the other benefit of this technology, we use it on a daily basis for operational needs. So we get, obviously complaints where, our trucks have hit cars or with missed bins, things like that. And we can go back, look at the footage, and, we can see that those damaged vehicles are sitting in the driveway, well before, we've come along, and the cameras pick it up. So from a cost perspective, we've been able to not accept insurance claims because we've got the evidence to prove that it wasn't our vehicles. So that's just one part. But incident investigations has been really handy. So this is just one small example of that. So we've just got some more questions, Jerome.
What we might do, we've got a mountain of questions coming in actually, and we'll try and go through a couple nice and quickly. If you can just keep them short and sharp as well, if that's possible. So I'll start with Maddie at the bottom here. Are you experiencing abnormalities or inaccuracies with your onboard mass management scales you fitted to your heavy fleet?
The answer to that is no. The system they've got is really reliable. We do calibrate them very regularly. I think it's, Dave, what's the frequency of calibration?
Every 6 months. We do it once, and then we get the manufacturers out to do it once a year.
Yep. So just add on to that quickly, we've trialled and we continue to trial a number of different scale systems. And we currently run axle loading on some, but the most effective, the most accurate that we've found has been the load cells on the bodies. But unfortunately, it just doesn't give you those axle weightings. But it's probably the most reliable.
Awesome. What are the specific areas you're addressing with your telematics? Is it just speed and mass?
No, we're covering all aspects in regards to COR compliance. So we use it for compliance monitoring requirement to tick off on our obligations under COR and heavy vehicle national law, but operationally as well. We're just actually about to upgrade that system as well to better serve our waste area in regards to its operational needs. It doesn't do everything that we need it to, so we're just about to go to market for that again. Okay.
We'll move on and take just two quick questions if you're willing. Are you willing to say what brand of load cells you're using and which telematics system you're using?
Yeah, we're happy to share our experience with the different brands. We can do that outside of this forum.
Great. Fantastic. So reach out afterwards. That'd be great. All right, let's dive on and keep on moving.
Okay, I'll just touch on COR. I think everyone's heard COR to death, but this is just our journey with COR. So like in 2014, we were aware of the COR concept and regulations, and council questioned, like every other council, the relevance to local operation of its heavy vehicle fleet. And we also had concerns over possible gaps with COR, but again, probably similar to other councils, it wasn't a top priority for us to look at this and address. 2016 came around, and we thought we'd have a real close look at this, and we just initiated a desktop audit in relation to our holistic application and compliance against COR. So we thought that we had good practices in place and we had pretty much everything covered off. But if you look at our audit outcome in 2016, we had 20 non-compliances. So this is the one big body of work that we undertook from 16 to 18. So we had a significant program of works to bring us up to speed to make sure that our organisation was compliant. And again, COR goes right through our organisation, through our procurement, through our projects area, leisure centres, libraries, waste, everywhere. It had touch points right through our organisation, but also too with suppliers. So that obviously needed executive support. So we took the outcome and a remedial or an improvement program to our executive and asked for endorsement. And whilst a lot of other councils questioned, the COR around their operations, our executive could see that it was relevant and we needed to take action, and they supported it. And again, we remeasured 2018 and we got 0 non-compliance. The partial compliance was really paperwork stuff with just a standard compliance with how we approach risk management, which was really fairly insignificant. We have COR on our rolling 3-year corporate audit program. So every 3 years we go through a deep dive audit for COR. We just completed the audit, but we really haven't got the specific outcomes of that audit. The initial outcome that we've been privy to is that there's no significant issues being highlighted. I think it's mainly simplification of our documentation, because we had so much that we had too much, and that's an issue for us that we're dealing with. Whilst we're getting our sort of everything in hand in regards to the quality of our assets and maintenance, we come to 2019, we're still having incidents, and so we identified the areas, and the areas was around primarily competent operation of our vehicles and plant, and also the working environment. So how we manage the risks for those high risk environments that our plant is engaged to, those activities. So this is another initiative that our executive signed off on, which we're still working through today. So again, the reason why is, council obviously highly values the safety and well-being of our community and our workers. We wanted to set a high target, so we want to aim for a 0 fleet-related safety incidents. So, we've got that out there, so our drivers and workers know that we've actually got a target that we're working towards. It focuses again on those key areas: risks associated with operator and driver competence. Whilst we had practices and processes in place in regards to ensuring competence and safe operation, we realised that it was probably to the minimum level that we were doing it, and we really wanted to step that up to ensure that proactive space that we were shifting into. So again, about safe plan operating procedures, we know that all of our documentation is very wordy, very long, and you give that to an operator or a driver and they'll read the first paragraph and then they'll move on. So we're doing work in that space to make sure that's simplified, and we want to create those automated safe behaviours within our staff. So again, we want to create a workforce that we have fully trained and competent operators and drivers. We want to also develop our care values and our culture. So council has its own values, that's organisational values. So we're aligning what we're doing with the Fleet Safe initiative to those care values and our culture. It links and contributes to our WHS road safety map as well. So it's got alignment to other things the organisation's doing in regards to safety. Again, simplified and creates improved safety documentation, and this is all a requirement under the Whs Act, primary duty of care, duties of persons conducting a business undertaking takings that supply plant, the Code of Practices for Managing the Risk of Plant in the Workplace 2013. So there's legislative requirements that saying that we need to do this. But council's probably, we're moving into that next phase where we're stepping it up from the minimum standard, probably to a silver standard. And again, the reason why is because the licence is no longer enough. An employee must demonstrate reasonable steps to ensure that that our workers are appropriately trained and competent to operate plant in our workplace. Okay, verification of competency. That this is part of the Fleet Safe project. Again, this is where we're moving from that minimum standard to the next step up. So what we're saying that our workers that operate or drive plant, they need to have that core element underpinning training. So statement of attainment provided by an RTO, license provided whether it's high risk or vehicle license or whatever. So that's the core, but verification of competency is about that ongoing check and validation about our workers' knowledge, skills and experience. So we're verifying the ability for the drivers to operate safely. Those, and we're targeting our high to extreme risk plant. Obviously, we can't do everything. We can't afford to do everything. So we're doing this in a phased approach. We've got a formal process. It's about a formal process for verifying skills and knowledge and experience, and we'll look at how we do that in the next slide. And it's a catalyst for lifting our safety culture behaviours. So again, it's about ensuring our workers know that we're committed, and we're actually spending money to make sure that we're going to keep people safe, community safe, and other vulnerable road users safe. The VOC methodology that we're adopting, obviously, to the left there, in the white is the core underpinning training requirements that we'd expect workers to be onboarded with. The VOC is about providing refresher training and bringing drivers and operators up to speed with the latest requirements and changes in regards to operating plant and heavy vehicles. That comprises of an actual written test and a practical test, and then we to ensure that they're competent to perform the task and role, and then it's reassessed on a cyclic basis. So existing workers, they'll go through that process every 3 years, and then if they just gained a new qualification or an RTO statement of attainment, they'll go through that process again in 6 months after completing that training. For new workers and onboarding, we don't want anyone operating any of our high to extreme risk plant or heavy vehicles unless they've been through the VOC process first. So that logistically, that's a bit of a it's hard to achieve, but we're making a commitment that that's the approach. So it may mean that it might be a couple of weeks before, for example, someone may not touch a steering wheel or controls of a plant asset. So again, transition takes time. So again, the VOC, verification of competency, and the Fleet Safe project, we've been working on that for the last 12 months to make sure that we get it right. We're consulting with our workers, making sure they're on board. We've done pilots, tests to make sure everyone's comfortable with the process. And this is just a bit of a roadmap of the time that it's going to take us to roll that program out and how we are going to do that. Talk about strategic leverage. So leverage change and actions, prevention of fleet incidents at the root cause. So we're wanting to really dive in to eliminate and prevent incidents occurring at the root cause. So we're looking at our strategic community plans, our waste sustainability strategies, climate, environmental strategies, integrated transport strategies, planning and DA processes, where these strategies have plans of actions, and there may be leverage or things that we can add into there that improves the safe operation of our fleet. So that's something at a high level that we're actually really concentrating on. Industry engagement, so partnering and leveraging the change process and be at the forefront. So engaging with the industry, so making sure that we're up to date with heavy vehicle regulators, participating with programs like the National Road Safety Partnership Program, being actively involved with IPWEA, actively involved in transport clean fleet programs, and engaging with the regulators as such. And here's just an example of, we've had a recent rise in garbage truck for fires relating to lithium batteries and the increase in use and disposal of lithium batteries and small propane cylinders. So councils heavily investing in engaging and educating our community about, this is just one example, but it might be, interaction of bike riders, pedestrians with heavy vehicles and other road users. So we're planning to do a lot more work in this space. So that's probably a fairly rushed overview of everything that we do. So
I'd even argue you probably got a few things you haven't even touched on because it's such an amazing journey. And I think there's a lot more in the community space, no doubt you guys do as well.
Correct, yeah. So there's a lot more to do. So we just keep chipping away at it. So we're not trying to tackle everything at once. We're just doing it piece by piece and keep working on it.
Fantastic, mate. Well, we're going to run a little bit over, everyone, so I do apologise, but it's been absolutely fantastic with the sharing. So what I'm going to do now is engage both David and Mark in a bit of a quick Q&A session of these and see if we can fly through them all. So first one I'll throw to you from Ron. Thanks. Also, how about what examples do you use to encourage drivers to report on your defects?
So we're trying to make it a positive experience for them, and we're providing them with the awareness about the benefits of reporting those defects. So like I said, it enables us to maintain those assets at a really high standard. So Dave's done a lot of work in regards to working with the drivers and operators to educate them about the need and the benefit for them reporting the smallest defects. And again, that's been really challenging and it's taken time, but we're actually getting there. And I'd say we've probably been doing it for a lot of effort for the last 3 to 5 years, Dave, in that space.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the big points is having, we've got 2 shifts, having both shifts able to do work on both, not waste focused. So shifting our focus across the whole fleet, which has definitely helped trying to get defects done straight away. I know a lot of things they're holding off to an RDO or things like that because we were so heavily waste focused. So that shift has definitely helped getting those defects done over night time and the vehicle back on the road during the day.
Let's make it a nicer place to work as well for everyone.
Yeah, definitely.
Question here from Jackie. Do you have any information on the reduction of workplace road instances as well from your proactive approach?
That's a bit of a hard one. We have those stats and data, but that's something that organisations don't really like sharing too much. We could probably talk about that.
That's right. Talk offline if you want.
We can talk offline about that at a higher level. Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
That'd be great. Do you use internal driver trainers or external driver trainers?
So this is the journey for us. We originally had an internal resource to do that. And that was part, when I explained about, those organisational change, we went through that and we lost that internal resource. And I don't think there was good understanding about the value of that role within our organisation. So that's led to probably that increase in some incidents around competency. So what we're doing, we've actually done a lot of work in that verification of competency component for training, driver training, operator training. We realised that we haven't got those internal resources at this point in time. So we're currently outsourcing that, and there's providers that come in to support us. Our suppliers support us for our garbage truck bodies on that side of it. Our intention is to build that capability within the organisation, but we're really starting from scratch again, to be honest. And we need that support from those organisations that can help us do that.
The best thing is you're putting it out there so you can draw on others' learnings to feed into it. So that's great.
That's exactly it.
And that's one of the advantages of sharing. So question from Jade. You mentioned the onboard scale systems that you use work better in a GVM space rather than axle splits. Is this a bit of a concern at all under the COR in regards to the measure of axle splits, and how do you manage that?
Correct. Yeah, it is. And that's why we keep looking for alternate systems. Look, we may not have come across the perfect system yet, but the ones that we have trialled, the accuracy is probably the issue for us. With our waste fleet, the body scales in that application provides us with pretty accurate figures of the payload. We have an understanding of the axle weight, how they shift as that vehicle gets loaded. So from history, we know how that sort of works, because we do bring them in and we've checked them front, all the different axles through the part loading as they go through their collection service. So we've done all that. We've done our homework. We try to build in a bit of contingency as well in the chassis and that we acquire. That's why anything below 15,000 GVM, we don't have scales on them. And our approach is that when we buy a chassis, we make sure that we do a lot of work in understanding what the application is, and we make sure that we've got contingency in capacity for the trucks that we buy. We don't buy trucks on borderline capacity.
Awesome. So I'll stretch over just another couple of minutes. So, because there is just so many questions coming, it's fantastic. Just a question around with breaches. Was there much of an issue at all with variable speed limits, I guess, with signage and things like that coming through? And just tying in another one, was there a bit of a consequence framework? So what happens to a driver continuously sort of breaches as well?
Yeah, so there is issues with variable speed limits. That's what we're talking about, the challenges when we're talking about interpreting telematics data. Look, our focus is on the breach trends rather than the actual specifics. We can drill down to the specifics and we can look at the time of day, whether it was a school zone, whether it was an overhead flyover that had a lower limit or whatever. We can do that. But, if you're looking at trends, you know that at least 80 to 90% of that data is correct. It's the anomalies that we don't really need to go into unless we've got a specific incident or something we need to address. So again, having that technology, it's about interpreting and how to use it, and that's just how we're using it. I'm not saying that's right, but we've found that seems to have the most value.
Awesome. Well, we're coming up in 10 minutes, so I'll close it out now. So I apologise to everyone's questions I couldn't get through. I'll just go back to you guys, Mark and Dave. Just like to ask you, if each what would be one takeaway thought you'd like to leave with everyone?
For me, fleet safety and operational safety around plant and equipment, it's just a continuous journey. You just got to keep working on it. Again, you can't do it, in 5 minutes. We've done a lot of work over the last 8 years, and as an organisation, we're still not quite there yet, but we're doing everything in our power to be proactive and maintain that continuous improvement in this space. So, we've got a real commitment within our work team, our risk team, our executive, to make sure that we do everything practical as possible.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Dave, what's your thoughts, mate? What were your lead behind it?
Mate, just probably use all the resources you got, like your drivers and your operators and your mechanics. You don't know everything, so using them and their experience just to change your processes and look at and review all those things to move forward. Just a bit more collaboration with all your staff.
That's a good point.
Absolutely love it, guys. Team effort. There's no silver bullet. It's a continuous journey, and there's a lot of practical things you've shared with everyone today. So thank you both so much for your time. Thank you to Sutherland Shire Council for being willing to put it out there, and it is a brave thing to do. And I recommend other organisations put it out there, and we can all grow and build together. And thank you very much to the audience as well. I think we've got some fantastic questions. Once again, sorry I couldn't get through them all, but it's a bit of a testimony to how amazing the presentation was today. So thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, everyone.